Hello class, welcome back. I want to do one of those like silly things where YouTubers ask people to answer a question and post a comment with the answer. So my question is, what is 2 plus 2? Let's see if you can actually find it out. Let me know in the comments. All right. So far we have in our app, we're just showing the users on the left side, but it's horrible. It's not styled or anything. So let's fix that. But for this to work, actually, we need to do something really important, which is to like this video and subscribe. Otherwise, your code will not run. All right, enough of the cringe and let's get to the code. Before we work on the front-end side of things, for the list of users to work properly, we need to add a couple of things. So if we look at a reference image of Facebook Messenger, we see that it also fetches for each user the latest message exchanged between you and them. Either you sent it or they sent it, the last message. And also, of course, their image URL, which we will fix in a second. So let's go back to VS Code. And I'm going to show you something. So we can generate these things called seeders using Sequelize. So make sure you're in the root directory and run Sequelize seed :generate. And we'll give it a name and I'll call this create users. And for this, I want to create a couple of like fake users in our database to work with. And what this seeder basically does is just, it's like a migration, but for creating and deleting data from your database. So you can here create, and then here you can delete whatever you created just to test out your database. So for this, I'm going to actually copy and paste these seeders, and you will find them in the video description, or you can create your own. So here I'll copy the create users one and paste it. And I'll also create another one. So I'll open the terminal again, and the same one, and I'll call this create messages. And I'm going to actually remove the migrations and run them again to make sure that the database is empty. So I'll say Sequelize db migrate undo all, and then I'll just migrate again. So Sequelize db migrate, and now I'm gonna paste this into the create messages. So here in the create users, I got 3 users, John, Jane, and Boss, and then we got like these, each of them have this image URL, which are like right here in the comments, and they all have like the same password 1 through 6. So I'll save this, and in the messages, it's just a couple of messages, fake messages exchanged between these fake users to test our application with. So we need to run these seeders. So here I'll run Sequelize db seed all like this, and I'll double check in the database to make sure that it actually ran. So root, and I'll use that chat database. I'll do select from users. There we go, we get 3 users, and let's check the messages. There we go, we get those 5 messages. And now we can test with these, and now we have image URLs. Okay, so I'll close these. And one thing we need to add, so let's go to the resolvers, so into the users. So like I said, we need to fetch the latest message exchanged between the current user, the authenticated user, and the user that they select from this list. So let's go to our resolver, and here in the get users resolver, we need to add this latest message property. And actually, let's add it in the type definitions first. So here for each user, there could be a latest message object, which will be of type message, and it will not be required because you can fetch the user without this when you log in or register. And I'm going to remove the required from the email because I'm going to omit emails from the get users resolver because, that's a security loophole. You don't want to show the other users' emails. So to prevent this find all call from fetching emails, we need to specify the fields that we're fetching. So here, here, before the where statement, we need to add we need to add that we tell Sequelize to select certain attributes. So here we'll say attributes, and this takes an array of attributes. So we only need the username and the image URL of these users, and also the created at in case we're gonna use it somewhere. So let's just get that, put a comma here, and here, actually I'll save and let's test this out. Actually, I need to run my server. So here I'll say npm run dev. And now let's go to the playground. I'm going to log in to get a new token. So because I think the other one is expired. So I'll just copy this. Come here, paste that. And now run the get users. Actually, I need to add the other fields. So I'll add all the fields, including the email, just to make sure that it's not there. So we need image URL as well. Actually, image URL first. Don't know why it's not adding it. Actually, I forgot to add it. My bad. So let's go back to type definitions. And here, let's say image URL. And it's a string. And we can set it as required because this is a public property. So let's go back, save that, and go back. And here, if I run this, there we go. We get the image URL, and the email is null because it's not actually being fetched in the SQL query. So we can omit it here. And let's now get the latest message. And here we can get the fields because this is a message type. So we'll get UID, from, to, and content, and created at. And let's run that. Oh, and it's null. Oh, of course, I forgot. I haven't implemented it yet. Okay, so here, what we're going to do is we could add this into the, where is it? Here in the index inside of a user. Actually, we could do, by the way, the same thing for created at for the user. So we can just copy this one more time and say user to make these dates format properly. So there we go. We get them as an ISO string. And we could add another entry here for the latest message, but that would be like I demonstrated last time. It would be highly inefficient because for each one, it's going to run an SQL query. Instead, what we can do, let's go back to our resolvers. Here, we can fetch all the messages that are either sent by our user, the current authenticated user, or received by them, and then loop through them and get the latest between them and each one of these users. So let's demonstrate how that works. So we need to run a SQL query to get these messages. And that SQL query would be, let's say const all user messages, or user, not users, oops, all user messages. And we need to import the message model. So here we'll say message, require models. And here we'll say equals await message dot find find all. And then we'll pass it a condition. So here we'll say where. And the condition would actually use the OR operator. So here the key will be op.or, because we need to get all the messages that either have a from that is our username or a to that is our username. So either sent by us or received by us. I mean, by us, I mean the authenticated user. So here the first object will be the from, and the condition will be user.username, because remember we have the user from the auth middleware, and then, or the context middleware, and this one would be the to, and it will be the same condition, user.username. And of course it's either this or this. Now let's actually add an order key. So order, and this will be an array, and it will have an array inside of it, and this would be ordered by created at and in descending order, so we get the latest message. So here what we need to do, we need to loop through these, because this will be like too many messages. We need to limit them one per each user. So here let's reassign the users. Actually, I need to change this to let so that I can reassign it a new value. So here we'll say users equals. So we basically need to loop through these and add a latest message to each one of them. Here we'll say equals users.map. And we'll say, so we need to call this something other than user because we already have that keyword. So we'll call it other user. And for each other user, arrow like this. And here we need to find the latest message from inside of this all user messages array. So we'll say const latest message equals all user messages dot find. And here our condition would be a message where message dot from equals the other user dot username, or that the message m dot to equals other user username. So now we get one message, and this has to be the latest because we're looping through from the start to the end, and the start has the latest message. And now we simply return. Actually, no, we need to attach the other user. We need to attach the latest message to the other user. So we'll say other user.latest message equals latest message, and then we just simply return the other user like this. And now instead of actually executing one SQL query per user, we just like map through them, and we just use JavaScript instead of running SQL queries, which is way more efficient. So now we can, actually this is already complete. We just now return the users. So let's make sure that this is working. So let's go to our playground, and here if we run this, there we go. We get our message here, and this is, hey John, are you done with that task? And this says, I'm working from home now, to Jane. And let's double check in our database that it is in fact the latest message. So we are John right now. So you have John to Jane, and then here to Jane, and here to Jane. And the latest one is this one. So I'm working from home now, so that's cool. And to boss, there's actually there's only one to boss, which is this one. And it is in fact the latest one and the only one. So that's working properly. So now we can actually move to the front end and implement this. So let's go back to VS Code. I'm going to close the MySQL CLI because I don't need it anymore. And let's go to our client folder. Let's actually run the client. So I'll open the terminal, open a new tab, cd into the client, and pm start, and close it. And now, so looking at our client, we need to start to, open the new tab. We need to start to work on the left section, which is where we have our users, and we need to style it to look like this. Now here, what I'm going to use is I'm going to make this into a div, and this will be of display of flex, and it will have a row, a flex row, and this will be on the left as one div as the image, and this will be another div that holds this the username or the name and also the message. So let's actually implement that. So we can go to pages, home, and so down here we're already looping through and just showing the user.username. So that user div is this div right here. So let's actually add some class names to it. So let's say class name equals, we need to make it of display of flex, so d-flex, and we need to give it some padding. So I'll give it p-3, so it gives it padding from all sides. And here inside, it's not going to be only the username. So first thing, we need the image. I'm actually going to import image from React Bootstrap. So here we'll import image. And here, first thing is going to be the image. So image, and this of course takes a source. And the source will be the image URL, which reminds me we need to update the query here to get all those other fields. I'm just going to actually just copy this. So copy this from here and paste it there. Of course, we're not getting the email anymore, so we just get the fields that we're going to use. So here, and here I'm leaving the from and to because we're going to use them down the line. So I'm just going to leave them. So here for the source, this is going to be user.image URL. And we need to add rounded circle as a property to this to make it a rounded circle. And I'll give it some margin on the side, on the right, to make some space between it and the text. So I'll give it class name, margin right 2, mr-2, and I'll give it some inline styling because otherwise this is gonna be massive or as big as the image is. So I'm gonna limit it. So I'll give it a width of 50, height 50, and also I'll give it an object fit. So object fit of cover so that it doesn't stretch the image if it's not actually square. And I'll just close this image tag. And here I'll put this inside of a div. So open up a div, and here at the top we'll have the username. And I'll give this a class text success to make it green, which is like the green that we set earlier in this series. And here we need the latest message. So here I'll have another paragraph. So I'm gonna give this the font weight of what is it, light, to make it thinner. And this will be, why is it changing? Light tab, and here we'll put the latest message. But of course, we might not have a latest message. We might not have any messages between us and this user. So we need to check for that. So we'll say user.latest message. And we need to do like a ternary operator. So if it does exist, then we're going to get user.latest message.content. Otherwise, we're just going to say you are now connected, like it does on Facebook Messenger. So let's save. See if that's actually working. Or actually, no, I forgot. Do we need... Oh, we're already executing the query, so that should work. So let's go to our client, refresh that. Maybe there's an error. Actually, it's just still compiling. My computer's being slow. All right, now it's done. There we go. We get the image and we get the username and the text, but there's some like weird spacing between them. So let's check it out. Oh, okay. Because these paragraphs, they have margin. So I'm gonna go back. So let's go here. So for each one, we can just add margin 0 like this. Or actually in this whole app, I'm gonna make it so that paragraphs don't have margin. So we can go to our app CSS and here say, or actually I think there's a variable in Bootstrap for this. Let's go here. I'm just gonna search for margin. Yeah, it's this one. So paragraph margin bottom. So I'm just gonna copy this, and in our app CSS, of course, before Bootstrap, I'm gonna set this to 0 and save so that it rebuilds the CSS. And there we go. So now it's styled properly, but I think because this is a column, yeah, this column has some padding, so I'm going to remove that padding. So we can simply go back to home, and here in the column, actually here in this column, we can add a class name of px0 or just p0 to remove all padding. And there we go. Now it's actually pushed to the left and has no padding. So I'm going to change actually the background color of this section to make it stand out from the messages section. So let's go. So it's this one right here. So this entire column, I'm just going to add another class name of text, not text, sorry, BG, secondary. Actually, I'm not sure what color it is. Oh, it's too dark. So let's change it. Let me check what the secondary is. Search for secondary. So it's gray 600. All right, so we just need to override the grade 600 in Bootstrap. So let's go back to the app CSS, and here I'll assign this gray 600 a very light gray. So RGB 245, 245, 245, and that should do. Let's save. There we go. So now it's like gray, so it stands out from messages. All right. Now let's make it so that when we, this is like a clickable div, and when we click on it, it actually fetches the messages between us and this user. So let's go back to our home. I'm going to close all of these, and here. So this, this entire div, the user div, we need to add an onClick function to it, or event. So we'll say onClick, and let's call this set selected user, because we're selecting a user. Actually, this needs to be a callback, and we'll pass it the username of this user. So user.username, because we're getting the user from the map. And here, let's create a state variable. So const selected user, and set selected user equals use state. And of course, this at the beginning will be null. And here we need to use useEffect to check for the selected user. And when that changes, we need to run a query to fetch the messages between us and this user. Actually, let's write that function first. And let's import both useState and useEffect. So here at the top, useEffect from React, and also useState. And we need to get use lazy query from Apollo. So use lazy query, because this is a query that is executed on demand. And we need to write that query. And I think we've already written it. So yeah, it's this one, the get messages query. So let's copy that. And here, I'm gonna add const get underscore messages. This will be equal GQL open template string, and actually needs to be inside another query because this needs to have a variable passed to it. So we'll say query get users, takes a from, so $ from, and it's a string and it's required, and then open curly braces and paste that in. But here we need to take so we need to take a from, which is this from that we have up here. So from, spelled from. Oh, actually, well, I pasted. Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna remove that line, indent this, and remove this, and get messages. Actually, this is get messages. What did I copy? Did I copy the wrong one? Interesting. Okay, that should. Okay, that formats. That doesn't look right. Oh, I don't need the keyword query here anymore. Okay. All right. So now we need to execute this each time the selected user is changed. So here in the use effect, we'll say, of course, we need to check whether it's null because it's null at the beginning. So we'll say if selected user, which means it's not null, then we simply, actually, we need to destructure the function from the use lazy query. So here, let's do array destructuring const. Let's call this get messages, and what else? We're gonna get the loading. And let's give it another name because we have a loading here. So let's just call it messages loading. And also get the data. And this will be messages data. And this will be from, so use lazy query. And we'll pass it the get underscore messages query that we just wrote. Let me actually move all of this a bit down because we wrote it actually after this. We no longer need this, like these checks that was just for testing. And here, so if selected user, let's copy that. Then we actually call this get messages function, and we'll pass it an object with the variables. So variables, and of course we need a from. So let's say from, and this will be the selected user, just like this. And here for the dependency arrays for this use effect, it will be the selected user. So selected user, so each time that changes, this executes again, and we get our data. So let's do, so messages data here. Let's say if messages data, then let's just console.log messages data. And because this query is called get messages, the data will be stored inside of that key. So let's say messages data dot get messages. All right, let's see if that's working. Let's go back to our app. Oh, log this out, or it logged me out. So just gonna log back in. Oh, okay, so cannot read property username of undefined. Network. Okay, so there's a problem with the with mapping the date that I added. So let's go to the index. Oh, actually not this index. Let me go to GraphQL resolve as index. So I'm just gonna remove this because apparently it's already mapping it to an ISO string. So that's fine. So I'm just gonna log in again. John 1 2 3 4 5 6, and now if I click here, we get, actually let's go to the console. There we go, we get data. So we get the messages between me and boss here, and if I click on Jane, we get the messages between John and Jane. So let's actually show these messages. So here, where are we? In the home, we need to actually loop through them. So that would be inside of here, inside of this column. Let's open an expression like a curly braces and check for messages data. So if messages data and messages data dot what is it? Get messages dot length is bigger than 0. Let's do another and, which means if these both are correct, then return the following. Or actually, I'm going to do a ternary operator in case there isn't a message. We're going to show another like message that says you're now connected. So if this is the case, then we need to do so. Actually, I'm just going to copy this messages data dot get messages dot map, and for each message, I'm going to return the following. And here we'll just return a paragraph for now. And we need to give it a key because we're looping through an array. And the key will be message.uuid. And close that tag. And the content will be message.content. And close that. So here we have a ternary operator. So here we need to do colon. So else, we're just going to return a paragraph that says you are now connected, like this. Let's save. Let's go back. So you are now connected. Oh, okay. Showing you are now connected because there's no messages data. Okay, so if there's messages and messages.length is bigger than 0. Actually here, let's just say else messages for now, because this needs to be restructured in the future anyway. So messages, and if I click on here on boss, so we get, hey John, how you doing? And then here, click on Jane, we get like, hey Jane, and they're like upside down, but we need to actually, we're going to change this in the future. So we do get the messages. All right, we're going to change this in the future video because this is getting a bit long, and I've been actually asked to make these a bit shorter. So here I am, I'm doing, and yeah, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell button because that's actually important. If you're subscribed without a bell, it doesn't do anything. All right, so thank you for watching, and I'll hope to see you there in the next one. Cheers.